Hello, worship leaders, musicians, and choir members. Today we're talking about the choir. We are going to get down to the brass tacks details of why choir can be such an amazing experience in churches all across America. We've got lots of choir sheet music at PraiseCharts and lots of choirs that are coming back after this crazy couple of years that we've been through. So I'm going to talk to a guy that is immersed in just growing the choir ministry at his church. His name is Brent Brunson from Bethesda Community Church. We're going to talk more about his life and ministry, and he's going to take us through some great points about why choir is so amazing. So here we go with Brent Brunson. Brent, good to have you on PraiseCharts Live.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Man,
it's great to be with you today.
Looking at you, I feel like I'm on CNN or something like that. You know, you just look so sharp. The sun glows behind your face. It's like something is up.
That's right. You know what? We just do what we do here.
Yeah.
Actually, interestingly,
Okay.
I do have a degree in broadcasting.
Oh,
So,
you do? Okay.
which how do you end up in music with a broadcasting degree? But
Yeah.
here I am.
But here you showed up, and I have to admit, just saying for myself, you were a little impressed with our setup when you logged into our system. You were like,
Very
okay,
impressed.
I know.
Yeah.
We do it well, man, and we've been
do it
loving
well.
it. So,
Hey, let me just say, you do a lot of things well.
oh, thanks.
We love PraiseChart, and the technology certainly is impressive, but just everything that you do it well.
Yeah.
So it was cool
Thank
to
you.
log in and see what you got going on.
Yeah. Well, it comes from I'm a bit of a geek, me and then a couple of guys in our office here. So we like to figure things out, and we spent a couple of months just figuring out, I don't know, lights and sound, and we wanted to do it great so that we can have, like, my dream honestly was, let's just have conversations just like I am with you, talking about practical topics.
Exactly.
And so today we're going to talk about choir. And the first thing I just kind of wanted to go in is you're kind of a unique guy because you're the choir director at a church where your pastor is like well known as a arranger, musician, producer, I don't know, all the things. J. Daniel Smith. So most music directors get the privilege of working for a pastor where it's like he doesn't really know what's going on with the music, so he just lets me do anything. So what's it like for you? I mean, you must tremble every morning.
No, you know what? Actually, let me tell you, I've been here 10 years. October is my 10-year anniversary at Bethesda. And the truth is, it has been the greatest joy and the greatest part of my life to be here at Bethesda. When we were coming into it, honestly, J. Daniel Smith, I grew up singing his charts. I saw his charts in my churches and his orchestrations and all of that. I even say that, all of us grew up singing his charts because he's been doing it for 140 years. I think he started right after the flood, but I'm just kidding. I said that because I know he's watching today. But the truth is, I didn't know what to expect. But can you imagine a greater mentor or a greater person to help you as you're, navigating the waters of coming into a new church, a new congregation, a new choir? And his door has always been open to me. And I have to say that anytime that I run up against a situation, or not just musically, but in just pastoring a group of people, his door's always been open, and he's there to help me. And there could be no one better. He's brilliant, and so it's been a great joy. Actually, there are scary times. It's been a great joy.
Yeah. Well, I can say this. I've been super encouraged just chatting with you the last couple of weeks. We're talking about, how to encourage choirs and bringing more choral music into PraiseCharts, making it relevant to the world, to the tone and genre of music that is in the church today. And that's what we're going to talk about. So I think we should just dive in. We have so much material. We could be here for hours, but I'm just going to press us through. You've given me 8 rock solid points that basically answer this question, why choir? So I'm putting it up bold here, and I can just swipe. This is just on my old iPad Pro here. Are you ready for point 1? Let's just dive right into it. Okay, here we go. Choir is biblical. Why don't we just start, at the foundation?
Yeah, yeah, it's biblical. Now, I'm not going to say that it's the Bible tells us that you have to have a choir,
Yeah.
but there is certainly a biblical precedent for it. It starts in the Old Testament. David, well, first of all, David was a musician, but David appointed a choir. I can think of several places, but certainly in First Chronicles 15, they're bringing the Ark of the Covenant back to Jerusalem. David appoints a choir, and there are several. If you read through First Chronicles 15, maybe into 16, there's kind of a prescription there for what David set up, and part of that was a choir, the Levites and the singers that numbered like 4,000. By the way, I can't imagine what that would have sounded like,
Mm-hmm.
but really all throughout the Old Testament, there are places that speak of a large group of people, and depending on your translation, it may not say choir. It's pretty clear when you see a group of singers and they're all in service in the temple or in service to the Ark of the Covenant. It's pretty clear it's a choir.
Right.
Even as in Solomon, as he uh, comes into command, and there are certain things that are happening in the temple. The choir is a big part of that. One of my favorite scriptures is from Second Chronicles 5, and it's the dedication of the temple. And it talks about the singers and the trumpet players and the priests. They all get in unison, it says. Now, I don't know if they played in unison or if it means they were in one mind and one spirit, which I think that probably is what they were. But it talks about how the glory of the Lord fills the temple.
Mm-hmm.
And the cloud was so thick, the priests could not even minister. So I can read all of that and get really excited about the role that music plays, but the role that choir plays
Mm-hmm.
in our worship services. So
What do you
yes,
think?
it's
Just as a little spin-off question of this is, like, it seems like the choir is like the congregation, but it's just a little bit more intentional about that. I mean, because
yeah,
I know I, as a worship leader, I love the sound of a congregation singing. I'll just like say instruments, tone down. I just want to hear. I'm sure many people can identify with that. So,
yeah,
but the
absolutely.
choir
And
takes it
actually, we
to
do that
another
too.
level. Yeah.
Yeah, we do that too. There are times I'll even tell the choir, "Hey, choir, be quiet. Instruments come down. We want to hear the congregation
Mm-hmm.
sing." Obviously, the congregation singing is the goal of any worship leader. If you're
Mm-hmm.
really doing your job, and this is a whole other class sometime, but getting
Mm-hmm.
your congregation to sing is a critical part of what we do. We want people to sing when they come in, but the choir is certainly, I think, set apart, and that's what we saw here, or we see in First, Second Chronicles, and other places. Look in Ezra and Nehemiah. Nehemiah comes back and rebuilds the city walls. He appoints two choirs that basically circle the city, march on the walls, and that's the celebration. It's the choir doing their thing. They were set apart to do a specific thing.
Mm-hmm.
It also reminds me of a time when Jehoshaphat was going to war with Jehoram, and the kingdoms had come together. They're marching out, and Jehoshaphat says, "Wait, hasn't someone inquired of the Lord?" And they answer, "Well, no." And he says, "Well, get Elisha here. We've got to ask the Lord about this." Well, Elisha reluctantly shows up to the scene, and he says, "Bring me a musician." And it's when the musician begins to play, it does something to unleash the prophetic gift that Elisha
Mm-hmm.
has, and he prophesying. I think choir's much the same way. When choir's functioning in their God-given role, they are set apart to do something that happens in the supernatural that
Mm-hmm.
transcends the music or the song
Mm-hmm.
itself. So
Well,
anyway,
that takes us
great.
right into the next point that
Sure.
you're saying the choir is a worship army, which obviously comes from the biblical precedent. So
Yeah.
tell us more about that.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's exactly right. So I can think of a couple of different places there. But speaking of Jehoshaphat, it's in Second Chronicles. I think it's Second Chronicles 20. Jehoshaphat he goes to the Lord, and I think Scripture also says he inquired, or he asked the people, he consulted with the people, but they ended up sending the choir into battle first. The choir marched into battle, and the picture of what happens there, the Lord turns the armies that are going against them. He turned them against one another. And it was something about their praise going first into the battle that the Lord used to do something there. And I think our Sunday morning service is very much like that. We're marching into battle on Sunday morning. I'm so aware that on any given week, people are walking in battling depression.
Yeah, right.
People lost their job. They got a
Mm-hmm.
terrible diagnosis from the doctor. Their kids have gone AWOL and they're heartbroken and don't know where to turn or what to do. People are struggling when they walk in on Sunday mornings, and it's very much a spiritual battle. And the choir, like that army marching into battle, says, you know what? We've practiced for this. We've prepared for this. We're marching first. We're going to worship the King of Kings and the Lord of Lords today. So come with us. The choir
Mm-hmm.
marches in declaring that the Lord is good. The Lord is here today. We're going to worship him. And so, very much like an army marching into battle,
Mm-hmm.
the
Mm-hmm.
choir goes first. Absolutely.
Let's just interject
And
here.
hey,
Oh,
by
go
the
ahead.
way, no, I was just going to say also, if you're talking about why would we have a choir, um, or why is it relevant today, it's something about that number of people as well. And I'm all for worship teams and bands and a few worship singers. That's great. But as you increase the numbers, there's something about that increases the effectiveness of the platform ministry, I think,
Right.
because it's multiple people who are praying, who are pressing in, who are leading the way.
Yeah. We were
So,
talking last week a little bit about how this, incentive or motivation to have a choir is being modeled in modern worship today. So there's a few,
yeah.
like Maverick City, just as an example, and maybe you could think of some others where it's not actually the choir is not going away. It's coming back. Maybe it's coming back a little
Yeah.
differently, or it's got new shape. But tell me about how you see this being modeled in some really attractive diverse worship models that we're seeing in
Oh, yeah.
worship today.
I can absolutely. I can think of several.
Yeah.
Maverick City for sure. Elevation
Yeah.
Worship.
Right.
Their last album, the one
Yeah.
before the one that the collaboration with Maverick City, huge choir in on that. Gateway Church, that's right down the road from us, had started bringing back choir. Lots of places are bringing back expressions of choir, and I think there are a lot of reasons for that. But some are, I think, beginning to see what the absence of choir has done to the
Mm-hmm.
people and done to churches' music ministries. And I just see it coming back in all kinds of ways. Now, for us, it never left. We've been committed to choir here for 40 years, and there are a lot of places that are. But I definitely see it coming back. And the interesting thing is the sound is not the same for all. They have
Mm-hmm.
different expressions, different ways of approaching the choir ministry, but it's all really for the same purpose. And so
Right.
it's a very encouraging thing to see.
Right. Right. Well, just thinking about the purpose, the like one of the core things is just being an encouragement for the congregation, because like you said in the
Yeah,
beginning, at the end of the day, it's all about getting the congregation to join in. It's not about just the performance from the stage.
right,
So the
right.
choir has an impact on that.
It does. One of the things that we say here, we say that worship leaders, my pastor, Pastor Dan, has said this so many times, and I believe it to my core. The function of a worship leader is to prompt and to give permission. So the
Hmm.
worship leader, or in the case of a choir, a loft full of worship leaders, prompt the congregation to sing. They prompt them to enter into worship, and they give them permission to do it. When you have a group of people up there that are clapping their hands, they're raising their hands, or they're singing out, it gives the congregation permission to do the same.
Mm-hmm.
So we're prompting them often, hey, folks, today let's just enter into the presence of the Lord. Hey, everybody, let's join our voices and sing. That's the prompting, but then actually seeing people do, that's the permission. And so
Mm-hmm.
I have seen time and time again how a stage full of people or a platform full of people or a choir loft, whatever you have in your situation, having that number of people who are singing out really encourages the congregation to sing out louder. They feel
Mm-hmm.
more included um, than just having one person who's singing. I think it can greatly help the effort to get the congregation to
Mm-hmm.
sing.
Well, in your next point, you were just talking about how it provides these touch points for the
Yeah,
congregation. So it's like there's a lot of different sea of faces. There's men, women, old, young, some
Yeah.
that are expressive, some that are less expressive. There's someone for anyone to kind of identify with, right?
That's
Yeah,
exactly right.
yeah,
I think if I can just say, without casting aspersion on churches that made a decision to take out the choir years
yeah,
ago,
yeah.
I understand there are a lot of reasons for that. First of all, administrating choir is not easy. It's difficult. It takes time. It takes time to keep up with people. It takes time to produce the charts or to go buy the music or find it or go to PraiseCharts.com and download it.
Yeah.
It takes time.
Right. Yeah.
And it's easier if you can just not have a group of people that you have to deal with and learn parts and all of that. And there are other reasons too. It kind of became less stylish to have a choir, and so we went to just having a couple of people on the front line. But what we lost when we did that was the ability for there to be a connection point for anybody in the congregation. I
Mm-hmm.
know that the reality is not everybody connects with me. We
Mm-hmm.
have two fabulous worship leaders on staff, Gerard and Jovan Woods, who have sung for everybody. They're fabulous,
Mm-hmm.
incredibly gifted. They're all of those things. But the reality is they don't connect with everybody either. So if it were just the three of us, we're without a doubt losing people in the congregation. But when I have a choir of 100 behind me, there is, like you just said, there's somebody for everyone. And the beautiful thing about that is to the dear sister in the back row of the fourth section over there in the sanctuary, she may look up into the choir loft and see that friend of hers that she knows that has a testimony, who's really been through the fire and has really been through a difficult season. But
Mm-hmm.
she sees that person raising their hands and, in spite of their circumstances, lifting up their praise to God, and that's inspiring to them and
Mm-hmm.
encourages them to worship and to sing. So yeah, absolutely, it provides those touch points that you can't get with just two or three people. And by the
Yeah.
way, on that point, it's also about testimony.
Right.
In the choir, we have people, and I think we'll talk about this later in a later point. But when you have people of different generations, it also provides the ability for people in different generations to look up and see someone that they can connect with. So older folks see older folks singing, younger
Yeah.
folks, younger folks singing, and everything in between. So
Yeah. Yeah.
absolutely, touch points, connection points.
Yeah. Well, I know that the goal of this session is not to downplay the value of worship teams or to make you feel bad if you don't have a choir, but we're just trying to like elevate the idea that hey, there is real value. The choir's not going away. It's very relevant. And so let's just talk a little more about what is the difference from a worship team, style of leading. What are the things that a congregation can do that a small worship team can't?
Yeah, and you make a good point there. We're not here to uh, tell someone that you're doing it wrong or that
Right.
you're bad or you're not following the Lord if you
Right.
don't have a choir.
Yeah.
However, I would encourage you to think about it and pray about it and say, but should we start a choir? Could we start
Yeah.
a choir? And that's a whole other class, talking about how do you start that? How do you recruit people? How do you keep people? And
Yeah.
all those are important things. But here's the thing that I think a choir does that it's difficult for a congregation to do, or it's difficult for a smaller group to do. There
Mm-hmm.
are certain songs that present truths, that present encouragement, that present ideas that just don't work for congregational singing. I can think of a few, but I love the new tune on the Maverick City Elevation thing, "Shall Not Want." Great
Mm-hmm.
song. It would be difficult. I'm not saying it's impossible, but it's a little more difficult for a congregation to latch onto and sing. If we
Mm-hmm.
go back to that point about, the worship leader's job is to get the congregation to sing, the more complicated the rhythms, the more complicated the lyrics, uh, the less likely you are to get the average person to sing in the pew.
Yeah.
So, for congregational singing, we pick songs that are a little easier to catch on to. They're easier for someone who's non-musical to be able to sing along with it. I don't have that restriction with the choir because I've got a group of people who know music, who
Mm-hmm.
practice with me for 90 minutes every Wednesday. And so we can do songs like "Shall Not Want" in a way that the congregation couldn't. But then it also allows the congregation to sit and be ministered to. because that's an important part of the ministry of music in a house as well. Us giving a song of encouragement,
Hmm.
uplifting Lord Jesus in a way. Let me give you a hymn, Holy, Holy, Holy,
Hmm.
classic hymn of the church. When you have a group of the choir lifting up a song like that in a very classical choral setting, there is something that it does for people sitting in the pew to help elevate, in a way, if I can say it like this, elevate their gaze, lift up their eyes, and to reflect on the majesty of God. I think one of the things that we've lost in our modern worship times is a sense of reverence and awe
Hmm.
for Creator, God, and King. As the choir lifts up a piece like that, there is something that can happen as the congregation is sitting and listening. And it goes back to that point about the choir being a worship army. But there's something that happens in the supernatural as we join our voices with the multitude of angels around the throne and with the saints of all times and lift up a song like that. Think about a Crowder's tune, All My Hope. Um,
Hmm.
those are the kinds of things that a choir can express that may be a little more
Hmm.
technically involved. And they can do it in a way that the congregation or even a small group of singers can't. So
Hmm.
it's definitely a different layer of musical expression.
I think as well, if I'm singing in a congregation and the power of the voices of the choir, I feel like my voice is a part of this massive sound. Like as opposed to if I'm just listening to a soloist, I know I'm not that soloist. But if the
Right.
the
Yeah,
choir just really starts to sound like an extension of the congregation, and then I feel more connected to it. I feel a part of it.
absolutely.
So
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
yeah.
Yeah, and that's the great thing about a choir is, um, as they lift their voices. By the way, when I'm a choir guy. I love the sound of choir, and I know that's not
Hmm.
for everybody. It's not necessarily mainstream. I know that most people don't have choir playlists on their playlist, whatever device they use. I do. But I do love the sound of choir. It got in my bones. I remember when I was 13, my mom and dad took me to see The Preacher's Wife, starring Whitney Houston. Do you know the movie?
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
the Georgia Mass Choir was the choir on that. And I remember sitting in that theater, listening to the sound of that choir, and thinking, oh my goodness, this is what heaven must sound like.
Yeah.
And then later on, as I was 13, 14, hearing the Christchurch choir in Nashville and being captivated by that sound,
Yeah.
there is something about that. I mean, it just goes from my head to my toes. There is something powerful about a group
Yeah.
that large. And you're right, it does make you feel like I can sing in that.
Yeah.
If I'm sitting in the congregation, I can lift my voice along with that.
Yeah.
And by the way, when it's just a soloist or when it's just a worship leader, again, not saying that it's bad or wrong, but when it's just one or two people, it makes you feel a little bit more like the people sitting around me can hear me if I lift my voice.
Yeah.
But as
Yeah.
we all raise our voices
Yeah.
together, I'm drowned out a little bit, and that allows me to then sing a little bit louder.
Yeah. For sure. I'm watching the chat here. Some people are posting in. I have a hunch there, Brent, that some people from your choir are listening in, and
Could
some
be.
others from other churches. In fact, if you're listening and you're a part of a choir, why don't you just put in the chat what your church is or what your choir? Do a little shout out for your church. Because I just want to ask Brent,
Yeah.
just looking at some of these faces, about the people who are in your choir, because I know it's got a kind of a unique flavor to it in that it stretches, through many different generations, like you were hinting at before. You've got a unique outlook on who should be in the choir. Tell us about that.
Yeah, well, okay, 40 years ago, Pastor Dan, really 43 years ago,
Mm-hmm.
Pastor Dan started this choir, and it's been rolling ever since. And the only requirements in all of those years that we have had are two simple things. Number one, we ask that you love the Lord, and number two, we ask that you love to sing. We've not auditioned, we've not done auditions because uh, well, there are a lot of reasons for that. There's probably a whole class in and of itself. But if you love the Lord and you love to sing and you feel like you have a calling to come be a part of the choir, we want you to be a part. And that's the beauty of a choir is, and we're going to talk about this later, but is that it makes a place for people of uh, every level of talent. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, we have folks who have literally sung in the choir since the beginning, 43 years they've been a part of
Mm-hmm.
the choir. We have people who have been a part of our church for 6 months, and they have come and joined us. We have young folks who are in their early 20s. We have a few who are in their late 70s, early 80s, and literally everything in between. So, and then the other great thing about our church is over the last 10 years, we've been growing not just multi generationally, but multiculturally. So we have some folks who um, don't we don't all look alike, is what I'm trying to say,
Mm-hmm.
and that's a beautiful thing too. I think it's a reflection of heaven, and it's a beautiful thing. And of course, our area is very multicultural, and even in our church here, we have services in Swahili, in Spanish, in Burmese, in Kinyarwanda. So it's a kind of a cross section of the community around us. But
Mm-hmm.
yeah, we've got. I just have to say, because I'm sure some of them are watching today, we have the best choir people on the
Yes.
planet. So,
Well, if
and
you
I'm sure if
disagree,
you're
you
if
could
you're
just put it in the chat if you think your choir
put
is
it in
the
the
best
chat.
in the planet.
Yeah, we'll face off. Put it in the
Yeah,
chat.
that's right.
Exactly right. Yeah.
You know what
Hey,
the
but you know
thing
what?
is? Okay, go
Go
ahead.
ahead. No, no, no. Go ahead. You go first.
Okay, I was just going to say what I like about what you're doing is you're taking people who, like, not meaning to be offensive, but they're average musicians, right? And you're training them
Yeah.
to do something where they can feel like we're making this sound like we sound awesome. This is so great. We're
Yeah.
learning music, we're learning rhythms, we're learning harmonies that you would never pull off on a Sunday morning because
Right.
sometimes you barely know the melody, right? But in choir, you
Yes.
can just go a little deeper. It just feels so great to be a part of creating something that just takes a bit of effort, right? And you,
Yes.
as the worship director, are putting musical depth into people, right? Teaching them how to read, how to listen, how to flow. So much skill that can come out of that experience. So that's what I
You
want to
are,
say.
oh,
Yeah.
well, you're on the money. The thing about
Yeah.
that is, you're right. We're taking people all across the spectrum. I have a few who are music teachers. I have a few who are at college level professors, people who do music for a living. Uh, we have I was going to call her a girl, but she's not a girl. She's we have a lady in our choir who does opera professionally. We have
Mm-hmm.
people who are very, very, very good, and then we have people who would not know how to read a note on the page if their life depended on it, and that's great, and they're welcome there. And what we do is we take people from who don't can't read a note or don't understand, they can't by themselves hear a harmony part, and all the way up to professionals. And when it comes together, there is something about it that is excellent. And you're
Yeah.
right, because we work on it and we prepare and we work on it and we prepare some more, and there is something of excellence that comes out
Yeah.
of that. And by the way, our thought is here, we don't do excellence just for the sake of excellence. We don't shoot for excellence because we want people to tell us how good we are. We go for excellence because the name of Jesus is worthy of nothing less than our absolute best effort. So,
Yeah.
yes, we
Yeah.
come, we work hard, we prepare, we put
Yeah.
everything that we have into it, but it does allow us all to be a part of something that's really great.
Yeah. Beautiful. Well, let's just go a little bit more on this point you were saying about the choir providing a place of ministry for the less talented. So, what is your
Yeah.
motivation, or what do you mean by that?
Well, what I mean by that, and if anybody who's watching now will forgive me for, I'm not trying to make you feel bad or make your church look bad or anything like that. This is
Mm-hmm.
my opinion. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
I think when we dropped choirs, just generally speaking, and I know a lot of
Mm-hmm.
places still do them, but by and large, when choirs started to die and people started saying, "Let's not do that," what happened is we lost a point of service for many, many people in our churches who never could stand in front of the congregation with a microphone. Unfortunately, and I mean, you know this, there's kind of a criteria in a lot of our churches for who is a platform person, and they have to look a certain way, or they have to be a certain age, or they have to whatever. And some of those are bad and need to by the wayside, and some of them obviously are good because it does take a certain level of understanding of not only music but things of the spirit to be able to be an effective worship leader and to be able to hold a microphone in your hands. But then what about the people that can't do that or don't feel called to that level of
Mm-hmm.
platform ministry? They just want to use their gift of singing. Well, when choirs went away, they had to go sit in the pews. And so
Mm-hmm.
you have sometimes dozens of people who have a musical gift that have no place to use that in their
Mm-hmm.
local church. And I
Mm-hmm.
think that's such a travesty. It's just a
Mm-hmm.
it's a shame. So the choir actually provides a place for those people to use their gift at whatever level their
Mm-hmm.
gift is. And and I think there's something about that that is not just great in the natural or the physical, but in the supernatural as well. I don't want to get too spooky about it, but it's something about that group of people. Because here's the thing: only you can give your praise.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, if I'm a musician and I have a call of God on my life, or if I'm a singer and I have a call of God on my life, maybe not to do it full time, maybe not to be a platform singer, but to be a part of that choir. I'm the only one who can give that praise. I'm the only one who can offer that sacrifice of praise to the Lord. So I
Mm-hmm.
think you're giving people that opportunity to use their gifts, and that's a great thing, and it's a beautiful thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I just want anyone listening. I mean, even I know what it's like to be in a church and like have a craving and a desire to get up on stage and sing or play my instrument and just I don't know, maybe I was in a church, it was too big, there's too many pro studio musicians around, and it's just the
Yeah,
reality is there's less spots available. Even for like I would
yeah,
consider myself reasonably, I've been a worship pastor for 10 years of my life. So I know how to play music, and even I don't always find a place, on the stage. So it's sad. It's like it feels a bit heart-wrenching when you're sitting in the congregation and you just see a small group of people on stage and go, I don't know where I can fit in on that. I don't know how to get
yeah.
in on that inside, right? So that's what
Yeah, it is,
trying to
and
open
it
some
is
doors.
sad because
Yeah.
yeah, and that's what I'm saying. If you're a worship pastor and you don't have a choir, consider it. It doesn't. The choir doesn't even have to sing every week. Now,
Yeah.
I think it should, but you know,
Yeah.
let them sing once a month. Let them do start with just doing special events. Maybe it's Christmas, it's Easter,
Yeah.
maybe it's a whatever. But give those people an opportunity to come up and use their voices. Make them all sing unison at
Yeah.
first. If you
Yeah.
don't know parts or have a hard time teaching parts, or or if you don't have enough people, start with 5, start with 10. Just
Right.
give those people an outlet to use their gifts.
Yeah. Yeah. Really
Absolutely.
good. Okay, we're bringing it home, looking towards the great future of the great choir around the throne of God.
Yes.
Tell us about it.
Yeah, well, this brings it full circle back to point
Yeah.
one. Choirs
Yeah.
are biblical. One that I left out, by the way, earlier, but was thinking about it, is in Luke, the story of the birth of Jesus. Suddenly there appeared a multitude of heavenly hosts praising God and saying glory to God in the highest. Well, John gives us a picture in Revelation of what he's seeing, and it's a great multitude around the throne. In fact,
Mm-hmm.
we had a funeral service here for a dear, precious lady in our fellowship. And we talked about in that service that heaven is a real place. The second point of the message was heaven is a roaring place, or
Mm-hmm.
it's a resounding place. There is a great multitude around the throne singing, "Worthy is the Lamb who was
Mm-hmm.
slain." This point is twofold. I think, first of all, what's beautiful about being a part of a church singing or a choir singing is that when we sing right now, we join with those who are around the throne right
Mm-hmm.
now,
Mm-hmm.
lifting their voices, praising God, giving glory to God. But it's also a rehearsal for that day that is to come,
Mm-hmm.
when either we close our eyes in death and we are transported to be with Jesus, or when the Lord returns and we all we all rise to be with him. There is a moment coming for each of us when if we believe in Jesus, we're going to
Mm-hmm.
be around the throne. I say let's
Mm-hmm.
rehearse for it now. Let's get ready
Yeah.
for it now. Join a choir.
Well,
Be a part of the choir. Get ready to be a part of
yeah,
that multitude.
yeah.
Yeah.
Love it.
Yeah.
Okay, so just to bring this home, Brent, I know you are passionate about your ministry, your choir. You've got some dreams and visions, and you don't just want to make worship great at Bethesda. You've got a real heart for like helping other churches, resourcing.
Yeah.
So tell me a little bit about some of the dreams you have for your own church and your own ministry to be able to be an encouragement and a resource to others. I mean, even there's
Sure.
possibilities that we can work together with you and PraiseCharts. We're talking about that. I don't want to let
Yes.
the cat out of the bag, but I'm just like, I'm excited to be around guys like you that just want to help, want to like light the fire, in churches around.
Well, thank you. You know what? And I'm excited to be around you because that's
Mm-hmm.
what Praise Chart has been doing now for years, is
Mm-hmm.
providing resources to local churches. And yes, that rings my bell as
Mm-hmm.
much more than anything. In what way can we help churches? You want to start
Right.
a choir? How can we help you? How can we resource you? And not just in terms of musical resources, but even PC lives like this and classes where
Yeah.
we can talk about what it takes to run a successful choir ministry.
Yeah.
Um, we want to help, and yes, I think we're working to get some of our music on praise charts, and really excited about that.
Yeah.
We do things a little differently here. Yeah, we don't just employ four chords. We
Yeah.
like to throw in fun, funky stuff in between
Yeah.
those four chords. And so, how can we help you learn those chords even?
Yeah.
Maybe we're sitting down at a piano and we're talking about here's what this looks like with these extensions, and here's some great passing chords. Those types of musical moments make for great opportunities for your harmonies with your choir. And
Yeah.
so, we love to. We've got a real gospel kind of flair to what we do, but we also sing things that are choral in nature. Sometimes we just do a hymn very simply with four-part harmony. So
Mm-hmm.
we kind of have a wide breadth of what we do, but we're wanting to get those charts, those songs, those arrangements onto praise charts so they can
Yeah.
be available.
Well, I'll tell you something. Brent and I are talking about wanting to do more sessions like this where we just get really practical, even a little technical about like, here's what you do. Here's how you grow a choir. Here's how you
Yeah.
feed a choir. Here's how you musically direct it. Like just, and really thinking about what does it look like in this modern age where we're singing, Maverick and Bethel and Passion and Tomlin and Hillsong and all of that music,
Yes.
and more can fit in this genre and how to make it relevant
Oh,
and
yeah.
also
Yeah.
across the generations, like how you get 12-year-olds and 18-year-olds singing with 60-year-olds and lighting each other up. So all you got
Yeah,
to do,
isn't
Brent,
that isn't
is
that a
go.
no, I'm sorry, I don't mean to cut you off, but
Hmm.
you're exciting as you talk. But isn't that a beautiful thing about a choir that a
Hmm.
12-year-old or a 15-year-old or 16-year-old
Hmm.
can sit next to a 75-year-old? I mean, that's where life and ministry happens. The youth, the vitality of the youth, the excitement of the youth,
Hmm.
mixed with the wisdom and the experience, or the wisdom and the experience of the older folks, the more
Yeah.
seasoned folks.
Yeah.
That's another beautiful side to the choir ministry that we didn't even talk about. But
Yeah.
also, if I can say one last thing, um, the the other part about having a choir that's multi-generational is when you get folks that have been down the journey of life a little ways. I know as a 25-year-old worship leader, I had not experienced. Now I'm not 25 now. I'm saying back
Hmm.
then. I'm 38 now, but back when I was 25, I had not experienced as much life. I had not spent as much time in the Lord's presence. I had not
Yeah.
navigated as many worship services when the Spirit was moving, and I didn't know exactly where to go or what to do.
Yeah.
Some of that is the beauty of having people who are older or more seasoned on your worship team or part of your worship ministry.
Yeah.
They've been through a little bit more of life. They
Yeah.
understand to a greater degree about the way the Spirit moves because they've done it more. And so that's another pro to having a multi-generational choir ministry. And I got to stop because I could just go on and on and on.
Yeah,
So
well,
I'm gonna.
it's not hard to light your fire, man. It's just like turn
That's
it
true.
on and let it go. So I knew we could end up going for hours, but I'm going to stop it here. Well, actually, just pausing it because we're going to do this again. All you have to do, Brent, you're set up.
Yeah.
You got a nice looking studio and you even look nice.
Yeah.
So there you go. You just turn the lights on, set your microphone,
Right.
and let's do this again soon.
Let's do it.
And
Let's do
we're
it.
going to help churches sound great, feel great, and bring people together, build community, and that's what we want. So thank you very much,
Love
Brent
it.
from Bethesda
Thank you, Ryan.
Community Church down in is it down in Dallas, Texas? Is
Fort
that where
Worth.
you are? Fort Worth. Okay, Fort
No,
Worth.
Fort Worth.
Oh, sorry. Well, look, I'm a Canadian, man, so I'm up in Langley, British Columbia.
That's
I
true.
barely
That's
know where
true.
Texas is, so.
Yeah. Well, Fort Worth is better than Dallas, so that's the only thing you need to know.
Gotcha. Okay, thank you to all of you who have listened in. We've had a great live audience. I'm sure many people will be watching this afterwards. Thank you for all the chats, everyone doing shout outs for your choir. I just want to encourage you, Brent and I both, and just stay with it. Be encouraging to your congregation. Lift up just great sounds of worship. And one day, man, we're going to make a mighty roar in heaven all together.
Yes.
So looking forward to that.
Amen.
Okay. Till next time. Thanks very much, Brent. Talk to you all later.
Blessings. Thanks, Ryan.
Okay. Bye then.